Okay.
How it was laid out.
But did they get a,
Because they would have gotten an increase when they switched to the new job, like if they took a job in a different department at a higher grade, they would have gotten those steps then, when they moved to that job. That's how they considered it with the cap, with the.
Or if they were in a department and they went from processing assistant 3 to an income maintenance worker, that's a changing of jobs.
Yeah, well, yeah, I understand all the little nitpicking and how you can slice them in this way and that way or whatever, but
Well, I
I'd just
guess-
like to take an overall look
Oh,
to
yeah,
see
yeah.
that people that have put their whole career with the county and just happened to make a change for a little bit more money or something, didn't get screwed out of the compression pay when other people got it, and make sure it's totally consistent.
Right. And we looked at the cost of the Mercer Group did too, with the years of actually in position, if you looked at it, and it was over double, I think, what the implementation was of it to do it with years in position.
Mhm.
The actual years of service, so like if somebody started out as one job and they moved to something else that was or they moved to a director's position, but they got all their years of service as a director. That's how that compression would have worked if you didn't do it for the position. And that's why that's why they recommended it doing that way.
Are you, Mr. Morris, Commissioner Morris, are you talking about everyone receiving the $7,500 compression if they have been here long enough to get it?
Yeah, sort of, but not exactly maybe. I mean,
We can come up with a number at the budget work sections, and we'll let you know exactly what it would take to bring everyone up and allow them to have the $7,500 if they have been employed here up to a certain period of time that would allow them to have it. If we go through the pay scale of this is how much you get each year in the new salary study and how long it would take to get to that 7,500, that's the scale that we would use. If you have been here 7 years, then you would get to 7,500. Anything under 7 years would be a proration of the 7,500. We can do that and give the board a cost of what that would be. In the
yeah,
work
just how
session
many
time.
individuals it affects, I'm
How many
interested
individuals
too.
it affects and how much the cost would be.
Yeah, let's do that if you don't mind. And
Do
I'm
that.
mainly just interested in folks that have spent their whole career here, and then within the last year or something, they made a little change and it got them, knocked them completely out of the 7,500.
We have looked at some of those that were right at the same time that the salary study went in effect. And like you said, it was a bad move for them to be reclassified at that time.
Mhm, yeah, exactly.
Well, there's been a couple we have fixed because of that.
Okay, well, let's talk about how we fix all of them. I mean, if we,
All
as
of them, we can do that.
long as it's just fair and consistent, that's really what I'm looking for.
I can have that in front of the board at the budget work sessions of what that cost is and how many people it is.
Okay, that'd be good.
And if I'm not mistaken, y'all have already started on some of that, hadn't you?
Compression?
On some of these people that had moved positions and stuff and seen how they got them effective.
Yes, we have.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Because it's not fair.
Right. Okay.
Okay, good. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman,
All right,
on
thank you. Any more on this?
the subject.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to item F, the proposed 21-22 budget schedule. Mr. Oakley.
These are your new dates on there, but you got yours pulled up. I know your computer was getting ready to die.
I almost died.
It was
I'm
dying.
sorry about the cord I had to put in here.
At the last meeting, we discussed all those date changes, and this list on here is with those changes, and I moved the Board of Education meeting back to 2 with their consent too. They were
Yes.
going to make sure you could get out of here in time for another meeting that
So
night.
these budget work sessions, I would love for you guys to say okay with that, and we can move forward to those right now. And as far as establishing these dates, and then Shannon has got your public hearing in there, and then you got your joint, like she said, the joint meeting with the Board of Education, which she got moved back to 2 o'clock. Give you as much time as she can. I think Commissioner Morris had Commissioner Mendenhall had somewhere he needed to go something that day, but. Hopefully, we can get the budget worked out or something that the board does like in these 4 meetings, and if not, then you do have a time that you can extend it on further if they needed to.
I don't have a recess date on this one just because the last date I had was the 17th, and I said recess after that. The 22nd, we're getting a little bit close, so we just kind of have to, I guess, play that date by ear, and if you need to recess to the next day, if that worked for everybody, or whichever. So I didn't put a proposed proposed recess date in there.
All right. But-
I'm fine with all these dates, if the rest of the
Yep.
board is.
I took out all the ones that seem to be issues from last night.
I'm good.
So I'll advertise these in the paper and run them on the website.
Okay.
Everybody's good with those?
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right, item G, review of the BOCC adopted rules of procedure. Shaver.
So on the agenda and before we started, I gave you all some paper copies just so you can flip back and forth. I just went through and made some changes based on what I was hearing at the last meeting. And I made kind of a cheat sheet of the proposed rules of procedure, what I had changed from what I was hearing. If there's something I'm not correct on, just let me know. But on page 3, section 4, rule 6A, I removed that section that states that the board would hold meetings at other locations, and that's due to that we live stream meetings now. So we just will hold every meeting here, unless, we get a huge crowd and have to move to the courthouse or something, but best efforts to be here. And then page 5, section 4, rule 8C, I added that to state that all open portions of the commissioners' meetings are now live streamed and archived, because it didn't say that before, because we didn't live stream when the rules of procedure were first done. And then under page 5, section 5, rule 9A and B, I put in there to change the time limit to submit items and release the agenda. So at the old way it read was that you had 5 working days to submit a request before the meeting for the agenda. And I put that in as 48 hours, and the same thing with the delivery of the agenda. Before, we used to deliver the agenda paper copies to your home or to wherever you'd like to leave it, or you'd pick it up. Now, because we do everything online and it's all digital, that was 48 hours too, because now it's pretty simple to add things. So if there's something that comes up at the last minute, it can be added and get sent to you before it goes out. So that gives more time to get meeting information together and have a productive meeting by getting everything that needs to be on there this last minute. So that changed on there. I did change that proposed. And then for a second, I'm going to skip the public comments part just because I'm going to finish the other ones and go back. That's going to be your discussion area. So under the page 7, section 6, rule 13, action by the board, I didn't change that at all because we talked about leaving that the same, because now it says you don't require a second, even though usually you do. So it's really up to you, but we didn't make any changes to that. And then the majority vote, we do this now already. We started that a couple of years ago, but to make sure that the names are clearly on there, if there's never a non-unanimous vote, it'll show the names clearly on yes and no votes on the minutes. And then proposed changes other than that are the rules, the order of business that we do in, as far as like first is approval of the agenda, then comments or public hearings or public comments, consent agenda. You discussed possibly changing the order of those a little bit, but I wasn't for sure, so I didn't make a change to that yet. And then the public comments, of course. So now our policy is pretty much just a policy saying 30 minutes and state your name, address, 3-minute time limit. So we had 2 different proposed changes. One was from County Attorney Browder, one was from Commissioner Morris, and both those are listed online. And then I just put together a proposed change with some things that you all talked about at the last meeting, which you still may want to make some changes to. So that's listed in this packet too, as far as the proposed change. I did put in there that the total time to be 30 minutes. For county commissioner meetings, you have to have 1 public comment period per month. You have 2 already, so you are doing two public comment periods already. And then I did extend the speaker time to 4 minutes for public comments, with the option to yield time to another speaker or add an optional minute, depending on the number of speakers that have signed up while abiding by that time limit. So, if you have 5 people coming, they all want to speak 5 minutes each, you're still not going to go over or one person comes and wants to speak for 15 minutes, you're not going over that limit. So, and then all the other parts in there that you had changed. There was one part I changed from shall to should at the recommendation of Commissioner Cox about the comments said all comments shall pertain to relevant matters. I changed that to should, because that way, if they don't always relevant. Sometimes what somebody thinks is relevant, somebody else might not think is relevant, but that's up to what they think. I took out the section that said no political activity and just left in no campaign speeches. So those are, I just listened to things that you said and tried to do a third draft to add to the confusion, I guess, but for you all to discuss and make changes to. And then hopefully if we can come to some agreement on some of these today, we can put another draft in the next meeting with just one copy with all the changes made for one document to read the minutes. I guess the easiest way first is there any issue with anything besides the order of business or the public comments? If all the other things are good, I can go ahead and make all those changes, and that's easy. And then the hardest part is the comments and the order of business.
I'm fine with all of that other stuff you just
Okay.
mentioned. And as far as the order of business, I'm fine either way, that anybody wants to do that. I don't have a strong opinion on that.
Don't bother me either.
So,
I think it'd be good to change that order so the commissioners can comment on what the public speaker said if they desire to do so, at their discretion.
So change where you make the comments at the beginning of the meeting, after the approval of the agenda, to after public comments before the approval of the consent agenda?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Is that right?
That's what I would prefer, but
that's fine,
On either way.
that's fine.
Are we gonna put something, if you all choose to do that, do you want me to put something in once you get your final draft of your public comment? Now our public comment policy says that the commissioners will hear comments but not respond. So
that needs
you wanna
changing.
change that to say the commissioners, can
And
respond.
respond,
If choose to, they can respond.
at their discretion.
Right.
I don't think that they should respond during the public comment time. I think they can respond during what we've already got on the agenda, which is our time to comment. So I would still leave it, because the last thing you
Yeah,
want is
that's what it needs to be.
a bannering back and forth during public comment. So,
I wasn't saying that, no,
Right,
not at all.
right.
So if we change the order, you will speak after the
Public comments.
So during your time to comments, I guess if there's things you want to touch on that were spoke about would be so it wouldn't be like a back and forth.
right.
Does everybody want to change that order to the commissioner's comments
Good.
after public comments?
That's fine.
Commissioner Mendenhall.
As far as the order of business,
Some counties even do them at the very end of the meeting, like after you've conducted all of your business. I don't know how far you want to take it down to have time to.
I mean, I go either way.
I'm the same way. Everybody else kind of feels like it can go either way, and Commissioner Morris wants it moved, we can move it down.
To after
So
the,
let's just move it after public
consent.
comments, but before consent.
yeah, that's fine,
So just direct that public comments go into your commissioner comments.
Correct.
that's fine.
Okay. And now,
Let me mention one thing about time, because I don't know if this needs to be in the rules per se, or it's just kind of an unspoken thing that we all know that we can do, but I know that in times when there have been a number of speakers on a subject, like where we've had to move meetings to courthouse like y'all did last year when the Second Amendment was talked about, you amended that time to allow for additional speakers. So I think that's a given, but do we need to specify that in the rules and procedures, that should there be a meeting where there are a large number of speakers, the time can be expanded from 30 minutes? I mean, I know we do that anyway, but does it need to be in there or not?
I mean, you can, because everything in these rules is subject to, you can make a change to them before you start, as long as you make that change together and vote on it and change, but you can put that in there. And also, in the old public comments section, we had a thing saying that, groups, a lot of counties ask people that are there to speak about the same subject to maybe designate a speaker, and that person speak on that subject if they want to do so, just for time's sake, to say there's 10 people here to speak about one particular issue, you might designate a speaker and speak about that too.
I think the only time that would be pertinent is if it was, say, if all the people were, say, from, I'll just pick on the Stokes Friends of the FOSS group or something, then, I guess I can see that, maybe picking a speaker to represent FOSS or whatever, but I think when it's a subject matter, but everybody's not in the same group, I don't know how that would pertain. I don't know.
Everybody's probably gonna have different views.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about that.
You can always put a disclaimer in your public comments rules of that, at the board's discretion, the time limit may be increased,
Yeah, that may just be good enough. I mean, you don't have to specify it, because we do that anyway.
Right.
When we got large numbers, but I would be fine with a disclaimer saying that time could be added if a large number of speakers were present or something.
And I think what we've done at the Second Amendment, which I asked everybody to be kind of respectful, because I think we had like 13 or 14. We was able to squeeze it in within that 30-minute time limit. But I just kind of reminded them that if you could shorten it down to a minute, 2 minutes, try to squeeze everybody in. And it moved along pretty good, so.
Yeah. Well, it may not need to be specified. I think it could just be a given that we would do that. Other than that, I like what you've done. I think your changes were reflecting what you heard, our comments, and it's definitely something I can live with and be okay with.
I can't live with it at all, so.
What you want to change?
To me, it reads fine down, and you read the sentence that says, all speakers shall maintain good decorum and show respect and good manners. I'm good with that. Vulgar language, profanity, and then I would add fiscal threats are prohibited. I would take out inappropriate gestures, insults, personal attacks, accusations, inflammatory language. That's all subjective.
The inappropriate gesture, that portion is Ty, and he asked me to add the inappropriate gestures to his.
I know, I just don't agree with Ty.
Yeah.
I mean, these are attorney opinions, and if you read the stuff from the School of Government, and I looked at it this weekend, first thing she says in there is you're flirting with the Constitution and First Amendment whenever you start doing this stuff. And then she goes down to recommend some of the exact same things Ty said, but that's her opinion, it's not. And she also says you can probably win a lawsuit if somebody sues you. But just the fact we have the authority to limit this stuff doesn't mean we should do it, in my opinion. So I would take out all that stuff that's subjective. I would definitely take out the sentence that says all comments should pertain to relevant matters with the board's authority and jurisdiction. That is controlling speech, limiting speech. No campaign speeches are permitted. I don't see why they can't have a campaign speech if they want to. So those are all content items. And things like inappropriate gestures, well, whose defines that?
I guess more define along with somebody would get up there and stick out their middle finger. I'd say that's inappropriate gesture right there.
I would too, but what if they raise their hand like that because they're so excited and they're talking? Is that inappropriate? I mean, it's all subjective.
I know, but I think all five of us have enough common sense not to take it as inappropriate.
But common sense and free speech, common sense is defined differently with everybody. So,
Well,
I'm not going to vote for it if it has those things left in it. But if the rest of you guys want to, then that's fine.
I see no problem where he's going on this because he's not, in my opinion, infringing on people's First Amendment right. I had a lot of quotes here at the last meeting. I got a quote myself. Ronald Reagan said, "Within the covers of the Bible are all the answers for all the problems men face." Even King Solomon wrote in the Bible in a book that there's a place and time for everything, and that's coming straight from a book of truth. So if you're saying that Ty's version is restricting First Amendment rights, then Commissioner Morris's so is yours, because we're also putting a limit on how long people can talk and what language they can use. So on the First Amendment right, it don't say freedom of speech, that you can't talk with a vulgar mouth, even though I don't condone it. But still, once again, that's putting rules in place that would also infringe on people's free speech if that's the way y'all look at it. And, other counties that are led by conservatives already have these rules in place, and actually maybe even stricter rules from some that I've seen, and they do it to maintain order, and there was no uproar from the citizens there. main thing we're sitting here looking at is, you know, I've seen some of the comments that are here today talking about they couldn't talk back to us if they disagree. That's a lie. That is not true. People didn't agree with the Pinnacle dump site. I wanted people here to tell me that. So I say we've been doing this for 2.5 years on the Pinnacle dump site. They finally come forward and said something to us. That's what we're here for, is conduct county business. So, and also by that right there, we're only required to do one public comment a month. We're still doing 2. So in no way, no how is like the rumors and lies that's going around about restricting people's right to talk and free speech. That is not happening here. So, with that being said, I see nothing wrong with Ty's version.
I disagree with you.
That's fine, you got your
That's your
opinion on
opinion,
that.
my opinion. I think we're limited, the time limit on speaking is an apples and orange comparison to the subjective evaluations of what people are saying and doing and the words they're using, and then limiting the subjects that they're allowed to talk about. I think that is you're dancing in the First Amendment and free speech if you limit what they're allowed to talk about when they come to the meeting.
To my
In
knowledge,
my opinion, so.
to my knowledge, nobody's ever come here to campaign. And that's basically the only thing you're taking out. That's the only thing they really can't come here and do. I don't know why they would want to come to a county commissioner and campaign, but
I also took out the fact that we only listen to things that are within the board's authority and jurisdiction.
It says
I mean,
should,
there's been
it
guys
doesn't say
announcing
they
Yeah, don't say
can.
shall.
that they're running for office at commissioner meetings. I think that's perfectly appropriate.
I don't, because it takes away time from citizens who's probably come here to try to give us a legit concern or complaint in the county.
I think that citizens come here because they're interested in the political situation that's going on. And that's a political
what's
issue.
going on, and at a county commissioner meeting, what's going on in the county. You want to hear him come campaign, like Commissioner Mendenhall said, how many different events did you name off that people go campaign at? 9. Different
still
events
relevant,
throughout the
that.
county that people come campaign at.
Just 'cause they
Never
do
done it
9
here.
Just because they do 9 don't mean you limit the 10th one.
Why would this
And
be a
it's
10th one?
Somebody made a good point. That camera up there belongs to the people. And why not let them use it for?
Okay, then we can have a
political
town hall
things?
meeting once a month. I'll come here and turn that camera on. They can come up here and talk all they want. But when people
Be
come
fine
for
if
a
you
county
want.
business, let them come here and speak on their county business.
I disagree.
Okay. Commissioner Mendenhall?
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna go back and re-echo what I did at the last meeting. County commissioner meetings are for county business, not for campaign speeches. There are many different venues and alternative locations that you can do campaign speeches. I listed them at the last meeting. Republican men's meeting, Republican women's meeting, the Republicans executive meeting, which I think is tomorrow night. Fundraisers where we have things such as gun raffles, where we have at Moortop Park. $100 giveaway, which is coming up soon for the Republican Party. I think most of the Republicans have been asked to sell tickets for that. They have a chance to speak there. American Legion, we always have at least 1 or 2 events there every year for the party, and they are given a chance to, anybody running that year, they're given a chance to speak at that time and give their views on why they're the best person for that position, whatever they're running for. It doesn't matter if it's county commissioner, clerk of court, register of deeds, or whatever. Whichever position you're running for, they're given chances to talk at those. We have chicken stews regularly, almost every year. All of these times, they're given chances to get up and tell the people that's at that meeting, which is on my end, which is on the Republican end, that they are able to stand up and say, this is why you should vote for me at the next election, and give that campaign speech there. I do not believe that this is a place where they need to be campaigning. This is a place, you know what, I had 2 calls a day after the last meeting. both calls called to say thank you, because you know what they called about? They called and said, we were watching the meeting last night, and you know what we wanted to know about? Was the Pinnacle waste site, whether it was going to be moved or not. They said, we're not watching live stream to see campaign speeches. We're watching to see what kind of county business is being done. And I just think that there's plenty of venues and locations where they have a chance to give campaign speeches. So the proposed change, which was written here, and it's in front of all 5 commissioners, which says before each regular meeting of the board, the clerk shall post a sign-up sheet. And it goes on, there'll be a total time of 30 minutes. Each speaker should be allowed 4 minutes. Keeps going, all speakers shall maintain good decorum and show respect and good manners. Vulgar language, profanity, inappropriate gestures, insults, personal attacks, accusations, and inflammatory language is prohibited. All comments should pertain to relevant matters within the board's authority and jurisdiction. No campaign speeches are permitted. The chairman of the board shall enforce these rules, and anyone not complying with these rules shall not be allowed to continue. And I just want to say to you, Mr. Chairman, that I support that change right there.
All right, thank you, sir. More questions or comments on it?
I got several calls on this over the weekend. People had different views, different points about it. So I spent my weekend on the computer, going back through history a little bit. So I just wanted to kind of get a little more enlightened on it. As we all know, it was written in 1791, First Amendment. So when I went back to it, I was reading through some of it, and it said the First Amendment guarantees freedom concerning religion, expression, assembly, and the right to petition. It guarantees freedom of expression by prohibiting Congress from restricting the press of the rights of the individuals to speak freely. That word freely is a long word when you get to looking at it. There again, campaign speeches, I don't particularly like that here, but when you go back to the First Amendment, constitutional right, you have the right to speak. I read on in the paragraph about this practically all weekend, trying to study this and looking at different views I asked different questions on the internet, and a lot of them were said, be cautious how you limited a person to freedom of speech. So that's my view on it. There again, we could be walking on thin ice. That's what I'm saying. But but when you read it, it plainly says freely. That's my put on it. Do I like the part as far as campaigning at a commissioner's meeting? No, I don't think that's an appropriate place to do it. But anything else they want to talk about freely, that is totally up to them. The person that's standing in front of us.
Shannon, I got a question. About how many people watch the commissioners' meetings on average?
Could be like 200 views most time.
It depends, if it's, controversial kind of subject matter, something, 300 or so, something like that. Sometimes it's 30, when it, just,
Right.
but lately it's been more, 2 to 300.
Right. So my only point with that is you're not going to get a whole lot of views of your campaign speech if this is where you want to give it. So you're much better off to do it on your own Facebook page and blast it everywhere and get all your friends to blast it everywhere if you want it out there, rather than using this forum for that matter. So I think we're pretty much saying the same thing that Commissioner Barneycastle's saying. Changing shall to should, all that means is it's preferable that the matter that you're speaking of is something we can do something about, but it's not going to limit anybody from getting up there and getting off on a sidetrack somewhere on some tangent that we can't do anything about. It's definitely not limiting anybody from coming up here and criticizing us. That's fine. Just do, as long as they maintain their decorum and they're not using vulgar language and cussing us and that kind of thing and being inflammatory, which I don't think is subjective, then I'm fine with it. Bring it on, whatever. I don't think this limits that. The only thing this limits is campaign speeches. And I think we're all pretty much in agreement except for Commissioner Morris that
And I will say, we are not the only county. Our neighboring county right here in Rockingham spells that clearly on their rules. Speakers before the Board of Commissioners will not be allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, or use language of a personal nature which insults or, zoom it up some, that means any person or which, when directed at a public official, is not related to his or her official duties. So they've even gone as far as saying that if it does not pertain to what the county commissioners handle, you don't talk about it. And this is in their very clear list. Do not. We're not even doing that. We're not even doing that. So, all the lies and the rumors and stuff that's on social media out in the public about this right here, saying that we're trying to take away your First Amendment right, is hogwash.
In your opinion?
in my opinion too, I agree with that.
Well, I wouldn't
The mountain out of a
campaign,
molehill.
I wouldn't campaign in public comments either probably, but I surely don't want to restrict somebody else from doing it if they want to.
Well, I do want to hear from
You're restricting speech when you do that.
That's your opinion.
And then
I
we can
want to
sit
hear
up here.
from our
we can sit-
citizens and what the actual problems is so we can take care of it.
We can sit up here as commissioners during our comment period and talk about anything in the world we want to.
But we don't.
But we could.
I ain't that
But we don't let
disrespectful
them
to
do
our
that.
people. When they come here to spend their time here to hear about county business, I'm going to stick to county business because I'm respectful to the people who's going to take their time here.
No, I'm not.
You know what they can do? They can run for office and they can get elected and they can come up here and they can sit up here and talk about whatever they want like we can.
Exactly.
That's all they
But
gotta
we're
do.
still restricting them to do something that we allow ourselves to do, but they can't do it.
So does
But
many
it's
other
just
counties, but
restriction.
nobody has a problem with that because they're like the same with us. They want to deal with the business and matter in hand. They want to get business done.
I don't think we're gonna reach agreement, so
Okay.
we're restricting free speech in my opinion.
How do you want me to put a draft of all this on a meeting to come, because this is just in discussion again, so if you're moving this to action for next time or whichever, do you want me to put, the draft with all the changes in it and one draft of the public comments and another draft so you can kind of vote on both?
Actually, I'm kind of fine with what you got here, moving it to action.
Okay.
As long as the majority of the board feels that way.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I don't see any reason to change anything else about it. The only change would be that we change the order of business.
Yeah, and put those comments after. Okay. And change that to say that at their discretion that the board of commissioners could comment. The items spoke about in public comments. Okay.
You need a motion to move it to action today?
No, I just need a consensus, but I just want to make sure I'm putting what I'm supposed to put on there as far as like the draft and then that. So I just want to make sure I'm putting the right thing on there.
Does the board wish to move this to action today with the change of moving the commissioner's comments after the public comments?
Not I.
I make a motion that we move it to action today.
Today. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Do you actually need a vote on that, or just consensus?
Yeah, if you're moving it today, I will need to
Okay.
vote.
Any discussion?
You got a motion and a second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. What was the vote?
4-1, did you vote?
Yeah.
Okay. 4-1. All right, so we'll put that as item D. All right, with that, we'll move on to item H, the discussion request of interview dates. Mr. Oakley?
Mr. Chairman, due to the sad resignation of our Assistant County Manager Clerk to the Board, I am requesting that we went ahead and advertised, which we have, and the advertising closing date is May the 4th at 5 o'clock. So I would love for the board to go ahead and set a date that we can do some interviewing due to the nature, time-sensitive nature of this, so we can move forward and get some people, someone in here that can get acquainted to what is to take place in this job, and hopefully Shannon can show a few things before she leaves to her new adventure in her new job. So I would love to have the applications on the 4th. You will be here at what is it, like a Board of E&R that day?
Yeah, there'll be an E&R where you could, for what you've received up until that point.
Right, and if there's anything that comes in that day afterwards, I will get it to you guys, but I'd love to go ahead and give it to you, the application, so you can start reviewing them and seeing who has applied and who's qualified and who's not. And then hopefully, if you would be willing to Friday, May the 7th, to do a interview for this position here, and that way we could move on. And if anyone that is acceptable, that you'd like to have in this position, we could go ahead and make the offer. They can go ahead and give a 2 weeks, 3 weeks notice, and we can try to get them in here as quick as we can. That we could have just a little bit of training. I don't see how you're going to get much of anything out of it, to tell you the truth, but
Mr. County Manager, what you're saying is you're cutting off the applications on the 4th,
yes,
and you're wanting to interview on the 7th.
that would be great.
Do you think that's giving the people that wants to interview enough time to work out their schedule, or?
I don't think so.
I mean, you're telling a person they got 3 days.
I would have this date here. I would call them if you want
But
to.
if
We're not going to be able to call them till the 5th.
What if they say, yeah, I really want that job, but that's just, I need just a little more time.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about.
So you'd rather have a little more time for them to
I'd like the next week.
do what now, sir?
The next week,
The next week?
the week of the 10th.
Shannon, when's your last day?
The 28th.
28th. Any way we can beg and plead and get you to stay? Take up collection, buy you some flowers. What do you want?
I've got another date on June 1st.
The
Okay.
10th, we meet on the 10th, right, at 6?
6 o'clock.
Yeah, you have a meeting that day.
I don't know if I would do it in a board meeting because you don't know how long these interviews would take place. And I think for them to push into a board meeting,
Meeting, yeah.
What about Tuesday the 11th?
Tuesday the 11th, that'd be great.
All right. Everybody good with that date?
So you want us to be available pretty much all day that day?
Well, say we had 5 or 6 people, then we'd probably do this.
But if you were to have 8 to 10,
You had
I
18?
think we need to allow the entire day,
Okay.
because we don't know how many we'll interview.
We had
least an hour per
5
interview.
hours for your department head in Public Works. So we interviewed 5 hours that day.
I
We
think this
interviewed,
position is going to get a lot of applications.
well, I don't know if it will or not.
Or not?
Well,
I got a conflict that day, but I guess I can change it.
The 11th?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're already going into that week, you want to look at the 12th?
I'm on the board of trustees at Forsyth Tech, and I have Forsyth Tech's graduation is that day, on the 12th. I could do the 13th or the 14th.
13th would be good.
I can do the 13th.
13th?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, 13th. I guess if we just block that day out, when they set those up, they can just give you a starting time and see. I mean, it'll really be up to, when you all review the applications and decide how many you want to interview and the block of time you're gonna need.
Yeah.
We'll be kind of make some of that decision too, and how long you're gonna need. So we'll just say the 13th, and then,
I mean, you probably wouldn't start before, what, 9 or something? I wouldn't think.
Yeah,
No, I think now would be good.
And then just,
All right. We was told that the live stream wasn't working, so I was checking it out real
oh,
quick.
there you go. It's working.
It is working.
It's working, yeah.
Okay.
I
Echo.
usually get 10 ticks if it's not, so.
What time we start?
There.
What time we start?
We said about 9, probably 9 would be the first one. And then maybe take a lunch break and then do
Going back to the posted position where
Thursday the 13th.
Mr. Morrison stated earlier, are we gonna post it more on a clerk's job or more leaning towards county manager?
This position's already posted.
Well, it's posted, so if you want to make a change to that,
See,
you need to talk.
You can look at the job description on there. On there, it's posted.
Is it external or just internal
It's
posting?
both. It's in
It's
and
both,
out,
right?
yeah, for 2 weeks. Yeah. They posted it last Tuesday, starting just to be able to get it both places, because if not, you gotta wait by the time you know, you don't get enough internal, you gotta go out.
Okay.
Okay, so 13th, 9 o'clock. And we'll-
All right.
All right.
All right. Go ahead and move on to item I, the proposed contract for services, Mr. Oakley.
This pertains to the same situation here. We're gonna need her services, I believe, into making sure that whoever takes this job is adequately trained in it. This doing a contract with Mrs. Shaver will allow her to come up here from time to time in person, and I'll mainly work with them through phone calls and online ways. But she's accepted to do contract services for Stokes County to make sure that this individual is acclimated into this position in a manner that they feel comfortable with, and we can move forward with our board meetings without too much interruption or failure to understand. But we will. I'm asking the board to see if they would approve the contract with Ms. Shaver. That would allow.
You can certainly, I mean, you can look at it and do it next time too, because it's not, I'm here for all of May. And it would really, I mean, I think if somebody gets hired, if you hired somebody around the 13th or 14th and they have to give a 2-week notice, it would mean I'm going to spend no time with them before they leave.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be gone. But if they come up, the first part of June, I could, even in the evenings, or sometimes help them through on the computer or through the phone to learn to do, or come up and meet them in the evening and help them get comfortable. Especially June is a crazy month with a schedule with all those board meetings you just set for the budget and all that. So it gives me a little time and flexibility. And I actually showed this contract to my new employer, just to be sure they didn't consider any kind of conflict, and they were okay with it. They even generously said, if something happens during the day and you really need to help the person or whatever, they'd be kind enough to let me take a call or do something like that during work. So that, just to be sure, because they didn't want anybody in a bad situation either. So
You would be able to remote in.
Yeah,
That helps a
And I
lot.
could be able to get access, still get for the time period that I was doing this, and it may not take more than 2 months or a month or whatever, just depending on who comes in and how fast we can pick it up. I could be able to access the agenda still and help them learn to put things where they go and all that. It's just a matter of having a little time to show somebody, so.
Well, I don't think we need to put this off. I've read over it twice. It gives you the amount of hours. I think it's not to exceed 100 hours. It includes the salary, that you'd be paid everything. So everything is in here, right here, Mr. Chairman. I think we ought to go ahead and move this to action today.
And that's what I say, it's only going to be used as needed anyway, correct?
Right, and it
Yeah.
also doesn't rush you so much, so if you
Right.
come up with something you want to discuss further, or you get these first round of applications and you're just like, well, I don't know, or
Sometimes you need a second interview.
you might need a second wave or something like that. So if that's the case, I could completely do, working in combination with Jake and different people in our office, I could completely do agenda things from home in the evening from working for the month of June, if you needed more time to decide who you're going to hire. It doesn't push you quite as much to make a decision.
My only question is to Julia. Julia, do you see any problems with the finance part of this contract? Have you looked over it?
It's gonna be paid through accounts payable because she won't be an employee, so she will be responsible.
independent contractor.
Does
Just
everybody
want
want
to
to
make, just want to make sure that our meetings move smoothly.
I agree. A motion and second to move this item to action. Do I have any discussion on it? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. We'll now move on to our action agenda. Item A, the JCPC fiscal year 21-22 fund and allocation request. Ms. Shannon, do you have an update for us on this?
Let me get to it, sorry, I was in another area.
Fine.
Scroll up. Okay, so the JCPC, they contacted me, Rich Smith with North Carolina Department of Justice. They had just a small error in accounting when he was doing his spreadsheet and transposed some numbers. And the amount that you saw originally on there for the funding allocation for them was amended to the correct amount. The total amount should say 166,918 instead of 166,978. It's a $60 difference. And I didn't want, there's no reason to start them all over. I'm starting over with the same, in discussion back to there. It's just a $60 difference. I want you to just, when you approve this, just to note that it's the 166,918 is the amount. Yeah, it was from the, when they did, he just transposed his numbers somewhere and ended up with a $60 difference. That's the only change. Everything, the funding amounts are the same. He had every number right on the spreadsheet. He just had the total wrong. So.
I'll make a motion, if there's no discussion, that we approve the JCPC funding request.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Item B, the request for abandonment of the portion of Hunter Road. Have a motion on this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Request for addition of Abbey Place Court. Have a motion on this?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, item D, review of the BOC adopted rules of procedure. Have a motion?
You have a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Item B, proposed contract for services.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Can I say something before we go into closed session? Since we've had so many people from the community come out and talk about us moving the waste site in Pinnacle, and since it's not been on our agenda for discussion, because some of us that were new to the board wasn't even aware that we had bought land to move it, but I think it would be safe to say that that's not anything we're looking to do anytime soon, and there will be more discussion in the future before anything's decided, and some more things looked at in ways that maybe we could make the present site safer before we look at possibly ever moving it to anywhere else. I mean, is that safe to say, just to ease their minds?
This will come up around budget time.
Yeah,
So.
gotcha. Gotcha.
That's a good comment, I'd say.
All right. Shannon, do you mind?
The reason I'm moving your comments to the end.
I know, right? Exactly. Exactly.
Shannon, can you read rationale, take us in closed session, please?
To North Carolina General Statute 143-318.1181 to prevent disclosure of information that is privileged or confidential pursuant to the law of the state or the United States, or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes under Chapter 7B, Juvenile Code Article 31 7B-3100B. Disclosure of information concerning a juvenile under investigation or alleged to be within jurisdiction of the court that would reveal the identity of that juvenile is prohibited except the publication of, and we'll just keep from there, but it's General Statute 7B-3102 is under that Chapter 7B.
Motion to enter closed.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting closed.
always just hand him would that wireless
All right,
mic
do I
work?
have a motion to close? I mean,
Make a motion that
to
we adjourn.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Could you do that? Hand him the